No!
How about this? The U.S. Park Police are...
Let's start by storming Blackgate!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to the latest video on my channel. This is, of course, my top 10 favorite comedies of all time. This is something that I've been looking forward to do for quite some time, but been nervous to actually do this because comedy is probably one of the most subjective genres, and I always say this, especially since there are going to be films on this list where you're like, wait, that's a drama. And it's like, well, no. Technically, it's a comedy and a drama, so it blends the two, so it can still be looked at as the one. Some of these are straight up comedies, so you'll definitely see some of those. But to kick things off, I'm going to be giving you guys honorable mentions, and then I'm going to be giving you 10 to 1, with obviously my number one being my favorite comedy. My criteria is simply this. These are all tonally consistent movies. That's obviously very important to me. These are all movies that have made me laugh, whether it's a couple times or throughout. Doesn't really matter. They have great stories. They are well fleshed out in terms of characters. And again, they have plot that are intriguing for myself. Also, rewatchability value. This is also something that's very important to me. So these are all movies that I find to be rewatchable and at the same time can even be quotable. Even though I have a very difficult time quoting movies in general, but these are usually some of the movies that I actually can quote as well. So this is my criteria. There's some other things too. It also has to be well shot. Obviously, I find a lot of comedies to be very bland looking, but a lot of these are very well shot, obviously. So it's going to be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts. But to kick things off again, let's get started with honorable mentions. So first honorable mention is Rango. That's right, it's Johnny Depp. Gore Verbinski film. Next up, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Love this film. 21 Jump Street. Just bought it recently on 4K. Need to rewatch it. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Loving the Bomb. No, I always get this mixed up. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I should just say Dr. Strangelove. Whatever, though. And then my last honorable mention, Tropic Thunder. I'm a dude disguised as a dude playing another dude. Something. Anyways, let's get started, guys. My number 10 is The Wolf of Wall Street, one of the loudest movies. Get loud. This is a loud movie. This is a rambunctious movie. This is a movie that's quotable. It's funny. It's Scorsese having the most excessive filmmaking ever. It's a movie that is one of the most profane movies. But you know what? Screw it. It's such an entertaining movie. It's a movie that has great dialogue. It's very quotable. $37,000. What did it cure cancer? It did cure cancer. That's one of the reasons why it's $37,000. You know, it's like lines like that. It's so hilarious. But this is also, again, one of the reasons why I love this movie. It's got great filmmaking. Does it have some issues? Sure. But it is a very quotable movie. It's a very entertaining movie. Great filmmaking. And again, the rewatchability value, it's off the charts, man. So that's why it's my number 10. Next up, my number 9 is Some Like It Hot, which some of you might not have heard of this movie. This is a Billy Wilder movie. This is the reason why you get so many movies about, cross-dressing and everything. This is the best one, though, by far. Some people might be like, Tootsie. But you know what? Tootsie's entertaining, but Some Like It Hot, my goodness, they had to work within the system. For those of you that don't know, during this time period, they had it where you had to give your movie to the rating board. And the rating board would essentially give it a pass or a fail. And if you got a fail, essentially you had to rework some things and everything. This movie had to work with that, and yet it somehow managed to get past a lot of innuendo and great subtle jokes. It's great, man. I love the line, she's like Jello on springs, man. It's like a new invention. It's like stuff like that. It's like such a subtle line that just somehow got through. And today it's one of the best lines in the movie. But again, it's also a movie that has a lot of important messages, and messages that I think have aged quite well. This is a great film, and it is why it is obviously on this list at number 9. Next up, my number 8 is Game Night. This was quite a surprise of 2018. This was a movie that I gave like a 4 out of 5 the first time, and then upon multiple watches, I just kept on coming back to it, and I gave it like a 4.5. I love this movie. This movie has incredible tracking shots. It's got a great score by Cliff Martinez. It's hilarious. Love the lines. Love especially the pop culture humor. The pop culture humor included a lot of film references, and they were earned. There was a lot of stuff in it that really worked. I especially love the situation involving one character that apparently looks like Denzel Washington, a whole, one night stand, but you'll know the scene when you get to it. But this is a movie that also just manages to have constant surprises. And again, it's tonally consistent. It's a movie that doesn't have a moment where you're like, aha, that's when it gets serious. No, it blends the two genres of comedy and drama very well, seamlessly. And that's why it is up here on this list at number 8. Love this movie. Oh yeah, and it's rewatchable. So that was my number 8. Next up, my number 7 is Malkovich. Being John Malkovich. Yes, one of the most original movies out there, also happens to be a riot. It is a riot. The scene where, part of me doesn't want to spoil it, but the scene where Malkovich goes into Malkovich, and if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know what I'm talking about, but the scene where Malkovich goes into Malkovich, that scene right there is comedy gold. I don't care if some of the movie is depressing. That is comedy gold, and there were a lot of scenes throughout that had me dying of laughter. This is a great achievement, honestly, for filmmaking. This is gold. This is what comedy can be. And that's what I'm going to be saying. Being John Malkovich. Watch it. If you don't like strange stuff, that's on you. You probably won't watch it then. I'm sorry. But love it. Being John Malkovich. That's why it's my number 7. Next up, my number 6 is Hot Fuzz. Although, caveat, hold the phone. I'm saying Hot Fuzz, but truth be told, all 3 of these, I'm going to say should be tied. So you know what? Screw it. I'm not saying Hot Fuzz. I'm saying the Cornetto trilogy. Changing that. Yep. Changing that. Number 6 is the Cornetto trilogy. That's right. This is a trilogy of films that honestly work as one. They are all different, obviously. That's why they're different flavors of Cornetto. But they all are incredible films. One of them manages to be great at horror and comedy. Another one manages to be great at action and comedy. And then World's End somehow manages to be incredible with science fiction and comedy. This is something that's unprecedented, and it's directed by the same director. It's amazing. Honestly, Edgar Wright, people should study him in terms of wanting to do a comedy, because he is a great director for comedy. And it shows. This trilogy looks great in 4K. It's manages, like I said already, to blend so well. And honestly, they're rewatchable movies. I'm going to be rewatching these movies until I'm in my 70s. Maybe older. I don't know, though. By that time, I'm sure I'll have dementia. But, yeah. That's why it's my number 6, that trilogy. Next up, my number 5 is PunchDrunk Love. Yes. Paul Thomas Anderson, he had to make a movie that managed to be great at romance, but also comedy. The shut up scene in this movie is great. Shut up. Now, are you threatening me? That scene alone is amazing. And there's a lot of other great scenes. I mean, there's a lot of quirkiness with this movie. Adam Sandler is playing someone that buys up pudding, and that's just hilarious. Like, he has OCD nature. I was always just like walking. The phone sex conversation, that is hilarious as well. There's a lot of great scenes in this movie, man, that just really crack me up. And it's very fast-paced. It looks great. There aren't that many comedies that get better than this movie, man. And that's why PunchDrunk Love, it's up there. It's a great film. It really is, and I would highly recommend it. But just like being John Malkovich, if you don't like strange movies that are odd and quirky, you might not like this movie. It might not be your style. But for me, it's my tempo. Well, yeah, that's my number 5. Next up, my number 4. Oh, sorry, it's a big Blu-ray. My number 4 is Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's right. I had to put an animated film on here. And honestly, Fantastic Mr. Fox doesn't get much more fantastic than this movie. Honestly, words kind of fail me in terms of this movie, because there's a charm to this movie. There's a sense of humor that is amazing. Like, I don't know why. Maybe Wes Anderson was originally going to make this like an adult movie, like R-rated. But like the fact that he decided to use the word cuss instead of actual cursing words, it's just hilarious. Like, it's cussing brilliant. I mean, could you imagine like people just saying, "What the cuss?" Like, what the cuss, man? You got to be cussing kidding me. Like, it's just hilarious. And honestly, it fits perfectly, because you'll have kids watch this movie and they're going to be like, cussing, great. And they're going to be like not understanding what the context is. Now adults are going to watch it. They'll be like, oh, I see what Wes Anderson did. So that alone is brilliant. But then you also have the fast-paced nature of the movie. The visual gags that manage to really bring a smile to my face. The drama also works very well, but first and foremost, it is a comedy. And on that front, it's excellent, man. One of the most rewatchable movies for myself and one of my favorites of all time. That's why it's my number 4. That's right. I'm not cussing kidding. All right, so that's my number 4. Next up, my number 3 is The Dude Abides. My number 3 is The Big Lebowski. Man, listen. If you don't like this movie, that's just like, like your opinion. But this is a great film. Like, I love the fact that it somehow manages to blend the stoner genre with comedy and drama. Like, there's drama in this movie that's actually very effective. The scenes with Steve Buscemi towards the end, again, not going to spoil anything, but that's very effective. And honestly, it's foreshadowed with several scenes that when you rewatch the movie, you notice that and you're like, oh, wow, that's a nice touch. And honestly, who doesn't like Jeff Bridges? And Jeff Bridges and John Goodman in particular work really well off each other. But as I mentioned with Steve Buscemi, the three of them work so well together because it really does showcase friendship. There are a lot of times, I don't know about your friend group, but there are a lot of times where friends will be talking and there'll be one person that's like missing the boat of what's going on or is just getting thrown into the situation so that they're not really following along, so they'll just say stuff and it's like, all right, well, that was something we already established, or, oh, wait, what are you talking about? And that's just great. Steve Buscemi is that character that's constantly missing the boat, and then John Goodman's freaking out at him, and then Jeff Bridges is like, yeah, man, I just want my rug. Like, it's just great, honestly. And it's so laid back, but at the same time, it's classic Coen Brothers. And honestly, what better way to experience a comedy than watching The Big Lebowski on repeat? That's something I might do in the future because it's a movie that I've seen it at least a dozen times and it refuses to get old. And I don't know if that's because when I watch comedies, I'm looking at the big picture and everything. But man, listen. Go watch The Big Lebowski if you haven't already. It is a strange movie, just like a lot of these other choices, but you know what? Screw it. You gotta watch it. And that's why it's my number 3. Next up is my number 2. And my number 2 is a movie that I mentioned earlier about the blending of drama and comedy, as a lot of these other entries have, but this one in particular also does that. And my number 2 is American Beauty. That's right. American Beauty is actually a comedy, and it is hilarious. That opening scene where he's in the shower and he's like, this is the highlight of my day. The one scene where he's explaining to Carol about like him like saying hi to his monster. Like, those scenes are hilarious. But also, what better way in terms of a 1999 film where Lester Burnham literally tells his boss to go screw himself and literally says like, bribes him. It's just great stuff, man. And the table scene, pass the asparagus. Well, somebody please pass me the asparagus. There's a lot of underlying humor that comes to the forefront, but it also manages to be a very effective drama. I think, honestly, the reason why this is my favorite movie is because when I think of tonally paced movies that manages to blend together genres, this is honestly the first one that comes to my mind because it works on both fronts. It's a movie that you can say to someone, hey, you want to watch a comedy? And they'll watch it and they'll find it funny. Or if someone wants a drama, it's very effective in the drama department as well. And the blending of both is just seamless. And that's probably why it did so well at the box office when it came out, because it was able to cater to so many audiences. And as an audience member, I love this movie, and I urge you to look closer. But yeah, it's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. Some of you probably already knew this, but you know what? Screw it. My number 1 is The Grand Budapest Hotel. Man, listen. This was my first movie that I technically saw as an adult. In North America, it's obviously looked at as once you turn 18, you're an adult. I saw this movie for the first time June 9th of 2014. And my goodness, ever since then, I've revisited this movie many, many times. It refuses to get old. The comedy is right up my alley. I know that this is technically my second Wes Anderson movie on the list. And truth be told, all of Wes Anderson movies manage to blend drama and comedy very well. And easily, they could have been honorable mentions too, but I wanted to switch it up. The Grand Budapest Hotel is not only Wes Anderson's best film, it is the movie that, when I think of comedy, this is honestly probably the first film that comes to my mind. And the reason why is because it manages not just to blend 2 or 3 genres the way a lot of these other movies do. This manages to blend like every single genre. Somehow, some way it does it. It can be looked at as an action movie. It can be looked at as a mystery movie. It can be looked at as a drama, a comedy, a heist film. Like, what the heck, man? Like, what is this? Like, what is this? Oh, also, it's an art house film. So it's just like at least 6 genres right off the bat. And it doesn't feel overcrowded. It feels perfect. For 100 minutes, it manages to tell a story that, by the way, is also a great framing device. A story within a story within a story that also cares about the characters, gives dialogue that is killer, quirky, and honestly hilarious. What more can you ask for? I ask again, what more can you ask for? Honestly, that's why the Grand Budapest Hotel, your answer, is the reason why it's my number 1. But yeah, guys, that is my top 10 comedies, favorite comedies of all time. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on what your top 10 favorite comedies of all time are. Keep in mind there are a lot of different comedies. There were a lot that didn't make the list that honestly probably would have been honorable mentions, but I had a list of like 20, 30, so I had to cut it down to like 5 honorable mentions. So, you know, just keep that in mind. But anyways, guys, I'm actually going to be trying to also do top 10 action films of all time, top 10 horror films of all time, maybe even top 10 noir films, you know, stuff like that. I'm going to try to do those lists. It's going to be hard, top 10 westerns, but I'm going to be trying to do that. So hopefully this will be the start of like a new series. But anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. Very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on your list. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.